So it's a tale of two Dan Sullivans. Voters in Alaska head to the polls today for a high-stakes primary that could determine control of the Senate next year. But all eyes are on the dueling race between incumbent Republican Senator Dan S. Sullivan versus Republican school teacher Dan J. Sullivan. You see, Senator Sullivan calls him a sham candidate and claims that he was just planted by Democrats to confuse voters. But the Alaska Supreme Court says Dan J. Sullivan is allowed to stay on the ballot. All right, let's break it all down. One of the key political reporters at the Anchorage Daily News, Iris Samuels. Iris, great to see you. So let's talk about these dueling Dan Sullivans and also these allegations that actually Dan J. Sullivan is a plant. How have you been covering this story?
Yeah, Alaska has a fairly unique primary system. It's an open primary system, so all candidates appear on the same primary ballot, regardless of party affiliation. So the allegations from the Republican side are that Dan J. Sullivan, this retired school teacher from Petersburg, has essentially decided to run in the race to confuse voters because they will see his name alongside the name of the Republican incumbent in the race on the same primary ballot. And of course, there is a very high-profile Democrat running against the Republican incumbent. That's Mary Peltola. She's a former U.S. House member. And essentially, the concern is that Dan J. Sullivan can take votes away from the incumbent Dan S. Sullivan and thus help Mary Peltola. But again, both Mary Peltola and the incumbent Dan Sullivan are expected to advance to the general election under Alaska's rules. 4 candidates will advance to the November ballot. And the question is, who will join them on that November ballot? So one thing we'll be watching today is whether Dan J. Sullivan, against this retired school teacher from Petersburg, will be one of those 4 people to join the ballot as well.
Well, let's talk about Mary Peltola and this race against, the Republican incumbent Senator Sullivan. Her mantra is fish, family, in freedom. Do you think that can win in a red state?
I think that she has shown that it can be a winning message. She won a special U.S. House race back in 2022 after former U.S. House member Don Young passed away unexpectedly. So she has shown that Alaska can go towards a Democrat. And of course, this is going to be a pivotal race because it's one that Democrats really need to win if they look to gain control of the U.S. Senate after the midterms.
So what do voters in Alaska really care about right now in 2026? And does that give Dems an opening, you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, salmon, which is part of Mary campaign, it is a really important thing to Alaskans, and whether Alaskans have access to fish, whether the fisheries are managed well, that is a very important question to Alaskans. And I think that that will be a deciding factor in this race, whether they believe that the incumbent, Senator Sullivan, has done enough to protect Alaska's fisheries. So yeah, I think that there is an opening here, but it's all up in the air and remains to be seen.
Iris Samuels with the Anchorage Daily News. Appreciate your time.